Picture this, a tiny town covered in dust. The kind of place where the sun shines hot, the streets are quiet, and nothing exciting ever happens. Or at least, that's what everyone thinks. This town has old houses with peeling paint, a little store with a creaky door, and a gas station where people stop to fill up before driving away fast. Kids ride bikes down the empty roads, and dogs nap in the shade. It's boring, super boring, until one day, something wild shakes everything up. That's where our story starts, and trust me, you're gonna want to hear this. Now, let me tell you about Sarah Miller. She's a woman who lives in this sleepy town. Sarah is different from most people here. She can't see. She's blind, which means her eyes don't work like yours or mine. But that doesn't stop her. She walks around with a long stick called a cane. She taps it on the ground, tap, 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 to feel where she's going. And right by her side, every single day, is her dog, Max. Max is big, really big, with scruffy fur that's a mix of brown and black. His ears stick up, and his tail wags slow, like he's always thinking about something. Sarah holds onto a strap on Max's back, and he leads her everywhere, down the street, into the store, even across the bumpy dirt paths. They're a team, Sarah and Max, always together. Most people in town know Sarah. They see her walking with Max, her cane tapping, and they think they know everything about her. "Oh, there's Sarah," they say. "Poor Sarah. She can't see. She must need lots of help." They feel sorry for her. Some folks even talk slow and loud when she's near, like she can't hear them either. "Poor little Sarah," they whisper. "She's so helpless." But here's the thing, they're wrong. Totally, completely wrong. Sarah isn't helpless at all. She's got something up her sleeve, something nobody knows about. And Max? Oh, Max isn't just a regular dog. He's got a secret, too, a big one. It's the kind of secret that makes your eyes pop open wide when you hear it. Something so cool, so surprising, that nobody in this dusty town would ever guess it in a million years. What do you think it could be? A magic trick? A hidden treasure? Nope, it's even better than that. Stick with me, because you're gonna love finding out. Let's set the scene a little more so you can picture it. This town is small, like I said. There's a main street with a few shops. One's a diner where people eat burgers and sip milkshakes. Another's a store that sells candy and soda. There's a big tree in the middle of town where kids climb and play. The roads are made of dirt and rocks, and when the wind blows, dust flies everywhere. It gets in your hair, your shoes, even your mouth if you're not careful. People here know each other. They wave and say hi, but they don't talk much. It's a quiet place, a slow place. Nothing big ever happens. No parades, no fireworks, no surprises. Just the same old days, over and over. Sarah lives in a little house at the edge of town. It's got a porch with a rocking chair, and the paint is chipping off the walls. She's lived there for a while now, just her and Max. Every morning, she steps outside, takes a deep breath, and starts her day. Tap, tap, tap goes her cane. Step, step, step goes Max, right beside her. They walk to the store to buy bread or milk. They stop by the diner sometimes for a treat. People see them and nod, but they don't really stop to chat. That's just Sarah, they think. She's nice, but she's weak. She can't do much. Oh, how wrong they are. Sarah hears everything they say, every little whisper. She knows what they think. But she doesn't argue. She doesn't yell. She just keeps walking, Max by her side, with a tiny smile on her face. Why's she smiling? What's she hiding? You'll see soon. Now, let's talk about Max for a minute. He's not like the other dogs in town. Most dogs here are small or lazy. They bark at squirrels or chase their tails. Not Max. He's big and strong, with a wide chest and legs that look ready to run forever. His fur is messy, like he's been rolling in the dirt, but his eyes, oh, his eyes are sharp. They're brown and deep, and when he looks at you, it feels like he's figuring you out. He doesn't bark much. He doesn't bounce around like a puppy. He just stays close to Sarah, watching everything. If a bird flies by, he looks. If a car drives past, he looks. If someone walks too close, he looks. He's always paying attention, like he's guarding something important. And he is Sarah. But there's more to it than that. Max has a story, a past, something nobody knows about yet. What do you think he did before he came to this town? Was he a farm dog? A pet for some fancy rich person? Nope. It's way cooler than that. Hang on tight, you're gonna find out. Let's zoom out a bit. This town might be boring, but it's got its people. There's old Mr. Jenkins, who sits on his porch all day and grumbles about the weather. There's Lucy, the girl who works at the diner and hums while she wipes the tables. There's Timmy, a kid with a red bike who zooms around yelling about pirates. They all see Sarah and Max every day. They wave or say hi, but they don't really think about her much. To them, she's just part of the town, like the big tree or the rusty gas station sign. They don't wonder about her. They don't ask questions. They just see a blind woman and her dog, and they move on. But soon, they're gonna wish they'd paid more attention. Something's coming, something big, and Sarah and Max are right in the middle of it. Okay, let's slow down for a second and imagine you're in this town. You're walking down the dusty street, the sun hot on your face. You see Sarah up ahead, tapping her cane. Max is next to her, his big paws padding along. What do you think? Maybe you'd say hi. Maybe you'd pet Max if Sarah said it was okay. Or maybe you'd just keep going, thinking, oh, that's the blind lady and her dog. That's what most people do. They don't stop. They don't look closer. But if they did, they might notice something funny. Like how Sarah's steps are sure and steady, not shaky. Or how Max's ears twitch at every sound, like he's ready for anything. Little clues, tiny hints, that something's different about them. Something special. Can you spot it yet? Don't worry if you can't, it's a secret for now, but I promise it's worth waiting for. Before we keep going, I've got a question for you. Picture this, a bunch of loud, mean bikers roll into town on their big, noisy motorcycles. They see Sarah walking with Max, and they start picking on her, yelling, laughing, being big jerks. What would you do? Would you tell them to stop? Would you run and get help? Or would you just watch, hoping they'd go away? Think about it, and tell me below. I want to know what you'd do, because pretty soon, those bikers are gonna show up in the story, and things are gonna get wild. You ready? Good, let's keep going. Back to Sarah and Max. They've been in this town for a few years now. Nobody knows where they came from. One day, they just showed up. Sarah rented the little house, and Max started walking her everywhere. People asked questions at first. Who's she? They said. Where'd she get that big dog? But Sarah didn't say much. She'd smile and nod, but she didn't tell stories about herself. Just passing through, she'd say, even though she never left. And Max? He didn't bark or growl at anyone back then. He just stayed by Sarah, quiet and calm. People got used to them. They stopped asking. They figured Sarah was just a nice, quiet lady who needed help, and Max was just her helper dog. Boy, were they in for a surprise. Let's paint the picture some more. It's a regular day in town. The sun's up high, making the dirt roads shimmer with heat. Sarah steps out of her house, her cane in one hand, Max's strap in the other. She's wearing a plain blue dress and a hat to keep the sun off her face. Max has his harness on, the one that says guide dog in big letters. They start walking toward the store. Tap, tap, tap goes the cane. Thump, thump, thump go Max's paws. A few people wave as they pass. Morning, Sarah, calls Mr. Jenkins from his porch. Hi, Max, yells Timmy, zooming by on his bike. Sarah waves back, her smile small but real. Max doesn't look at them. He keeps his eyes ahead, guiding Sarah around a rock in the path. They're a perfect pair, moving together like they've done this 1,000 times. And they have. But today's different. Today's the day everything changes. Why is it different? Well, something's brewing in this town. Something loud, something mean, something that's gonna crash right into Sarah and Max. The people here don't know it yet. They're just going about their day eating burgers, riding bikes, napping in the shade. They think it's gonna be boring forever. But Sarah knows better. She can hear it, the rumble in the distance, the sound of trouble coming closer. And Max? He can feel it. His ears perk up, his tail stops wagging. He's ready. Ready for what? Oh, you'll see. It's gonna be big, it's gonna be crazy, and it's gonna make this dusty little town talk for years. Let's zoom in on Sarah for a bit. She's not old, but she's not young either. Maybe she's 40, maybe a little more. Her hair is brown and tied back in a ponytail. She wears sunglasses, dark ones, because the sun's bright and her eyes don't need it anyway. She's not tall, not short, just regular. But there's something about her. She's calm, really calm, like nothing scares her. People think it's because she's blind, like she doesn't know what's around her. But that's not it. She hears everything: the wind, the birds, the creak of a door, the hum of a car miles away. She knows more than people think. And she's strong, too, not big muscles strong, but inside strong. The kind of strong that waits, listens, and wins. Max is strong, too, but in a different way. He's got power in his legs, his back, his jaws. He could run fast if he wanted to. He could jump high. But he doesn't. He stays slow, steady, keeping pace with Sarah. People pet him sometimes, and he lets them. Good dog, they say, and he wags his tail a little. But his eyes don't smile. They watch. They wait. He's like a soldier, always on duty. What's he waiting for? Why's he so serious? That's part of the secret, part of the big surprise coming up. You're gonna gasp when you hear it, I promise. So, here we are in this dusty town. Sarah and Max are walking along, just another day or so it seems. The store's up ahead, and Sarah's thinking about buying some apples. Max is sniffing the air, catching smells nobody else notices. The sun's beating down, the dust is swirling, and everything feels normal. But it's not. Something's about to happen. Something loud, something rough, something that's gonna test Sarah and Max like never before. What do you think it is? A storm? A robbery? Nope, it's people. Bad people. People who don't know who they're messing with. Let's wrap up this beginning part with one more look around. The town's quiet, but there's a hum in the air, a feeling that's hard to name. Sarah feels it. Max feels it. They don't talk about it. Sarah can't see Max's face, and Max doesn't bark, but they know. They're ready. The people watching them don't know yet. Mr. Jenkins is still grumbling. Lucy's still humming. Timmy's still riding. They think Sarah's weak, Max is just a dog, and nothing exciting ever happens here. Oh, they're so wrong. This dusty little town is about to get a wake-up call, and Sarah and Max are gonna be the ones to give it. So, what's the secret? What's Max hiding? Why's Sarah smiling like that? You're gonna find out soon, and it's gonna be awesome. But first, let's hear from you again. Imagine those loudmouth bikers I talked about, big guys with big bikes, being mean to Sarah. What would you do? Would you stand up to them? Run away? Tell me below, because those bikers are coming, and this story's about to get wild. Stick around, you don't want to miss what happens next. It was a super hot afternoon in that dusty little town. The sun was blazing down, making the air feel thick and sticky. Everything was quiet, too quiet, like the calm before something big happens. Sarah Miller was at the town's little gas station, just minding her own business. She's the blind lady we talked about, the one with the big, scruffy dog named Max. Sarah was inside the gas station store, buying a soda. She tapped her cane on the floor, tap, 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 to find her way to the counter. Max was right next to her, sitting still like a statue. His big brown eyes watched everything, but he didn't move a muscle. He just stayed close, like always, helping Sarah. The gas station was small, just a dusty building with 2 pumps outside and a few shelves inside. There was a cooler by the door with cold drinks, and that's where Sarah went. She grabbed a soda, her favorite kind, the one with bubbles that tickle your nose. The cashier, a guy named Pete, rang it up for her. Pete was skinny, with messy hair and a nervous smile. "Hey, Sarah," he said, his voice quiet. "Hot day, huh?" Sarah nodded, smiling a little. "Sure is," she said, handing him some coins. She couldn't see him, but she heard his shaky voice. Pete was nice, but he didn't talk much. He just took her money and gave her the soda. Max sat there, calm and cool, waiting for Sarah to finish. That's when it happened. The peace and quiet broke like glass smashing on the floor. A loud roar filled the air. Rumble, rumble, rumble. It was the sound of motorcycles, big ones, tearing down the road. Dust flew everywhere as 5 bikers rolled into the gas station lot. Their bikes were shiny and loud, with engines that growled like angry bears. The bikers stopped right by the pumps, kicking up more dirt with their heavy boots. They wore leather jackets, even though it was hot, and their faces were tough, like they didn't care about anything. 5 of them big, loud, and ready to make trouble. The leader of the pack was a guy named Rusty. He was tall, with a scruffy beard and a mean grin. His jacket had patches on it, and his boots were scuffed from stomping around. Rusty hopped off his bike first, stretching his arms like he owned the whole town. The other 4 bikers followed him, laughing and talking loud. There was Joey, short and stocky with a loud laugh. Then Mike, skinny with a pointy nose. Big Tom was huge, like a mountain, and he cracked his knuckles as he walked. Last was Slim, who had a sneaky smile and kept flipping a coin in his hand. Together, they were a noisy, messy bunch, and they strutted around like kings. Rusty's sharp eyes landed on Sarah. She was just stepping outside the gas station door, her soda in one hand, her cane in the other. Max was right beside her, guiding her with slow, steady steps. Rusty smirked, a nasty little twist of his mouth. He saw her cane, her dark sunglasses, and Max by her side, and he thought he'd found someone easy to pick on. "Hey, lady," he yelled, loud enough for the whole town to hear. "Your mutt better not get in our way." His voice was rough, like gravel crunching under a tire. The other bikers laughed, big, mean laughs that echoed across the lot. Joey kicked some dirt toward Sarah, sending a little cloud of dust her way. Mike snorted and said, "Yeah, move it, dog." They swaggered closer, their boots thumping on the ground. Sarah didn't jump or scream. She didn't even blink. She couldn't, because she's blind. She just stopped walking and tilted her head a little, like she was listening hard. The soda fizzed in her hand, and her cane stayed still. Max didn't growl or bark. He just sat there, his ears twitching, his eyes locked on Rusty. The bikers didn't notice how still he was, how his fur bristled just a tiny bit. They were too busy being loud and rude. Sarah heard every word, every laugh, every shuffle of their boots. She didn't say anything back, not yet. She just listened, calm as a lake on a windless day. Rusty wasn't done. He loved being the big guy, the one everyone looked at. He took a step closer, his smirk growing wider. "What's a blind chick gonna do about it?" he shouted, throwing his hands up like it was a big joke. "Cry for help." The bikers roared with laughter again. Big Tom slapped his knee, and Slim's coin flipped faster in the air. Joey kicked more dirt, this time closer to Sarah's feet. The dust floated up, brushing against her shoes, but she didn't move. Max's ears twitched again, and his tail stopped wagging. His big body stayed still, but something in his eyes changed. They got sharper, like he was figuring something out. Inside the gas station, Pete the cashier peeked out the window. He saw the bikers, saw them yelling at Sarah, and he winced. His face scrunched up like he'd bitten a sour lemon. Pete didn't like trouble. He was scared of these guys, their loud voices, their big boots, their mean laughs. He wanted to say something, to tell them to stop, but his mouth stayed shut. His hands shook a little as he gripped the counter. He didn't know what to do. He just watched, hoping they'd leave soon. The bikers didn't even notice him. They thought they owned the place, like nobody could stop them. Oh boy, were they wrong. Can you feel it? The air was getting heavy, like a storm was coming. Not a rainstorm, but a trouble storm. The bikers were loud and pushy, thinking Sarah was weak because she couldn't see. They didn't care about her or Max. They just wanted to have fun, to feel big by making someone else feel small. But Sarah wasn't scared. She stood there, quiet and steady, with Max by her side. The bikers laughed and yelled, but they didn't see what was right in front of them. They didn't see the strength in Sarah's calm face. They didn't see the power in Max's still body. They had no idea who they were messing with. What do you think Max is thinking right now? Is he mad? Is he waiting? Hold that thought, you're gonna find out soon. Let's rewind a bit and picture the scene. The gas station sat on the edge of town, where the dirt road met a patch of dry grass. The two pumps were rusty, and the sign above the door squeaked in the hot wind. Inside, the cooler hummed, and Pete's radio played a quiet song. Outside, the bikers' engines were still warm, ticking as they cooled down. Sarah stood just past the door, her soda cold in her hand. The bikers were spread out in a half circle, blocking her path. Rusty was in front, his shadow long on the ground. The others stood behind him, grinning like they'd won a prize. Dust hung in the air, making everything hazy. Sarah heard it all. She heard Rusty's rough voice, Joey's loud laugh, Mike's snort. She heard the dirt hit the ground near her feet. She heard the wind, the creak of the sign, even Pete's shaky breathing inside. Her ears were her eyes, and they didn't miss a thing. She knew these guys were trouble. She'd met people like them before, loud, rude, thinking they could push anyone around. But Sarah wasn't just anyone. She had Max, and Max had her. Together, they were something else, something these bikers didn't understand yet. Max stayed still, but he was ready. His big paws pressed into the dirt, and his muscles were tight under his scruffy fur. He didn't growl or show his teeth, not yet. He just watched Rusty, his eyes following every move. When Rusty yelled, Max's ears flicked. When Joey kicked dirt, Max's head tilted just a tiny bit. He was like a statue, but a statue that could spring to life any second. The bikers didn't notice. They were too busy laughing, too busy feeling tough. Look at her, Slim said, flipping his coin. She's not even moving. Big Tom nodded. She's scared stiff. They thought they had her figured out. Wrong, wrong, wrong. The tension was building, like a rubber band stretching tighter and tighter. You could almost hear it snap, 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 ready to break. The bikers kept pushing, thinking they were in charge. Rusty took another step, his boots crunching loud on the gravel. Hey, lady, you deaf too, he barked, waving a hand in front of her face. Sarah didn't flinch. She couldn't see his hand, but she felt the air move. She heard his breath, smelled the leather of his jacket. She stayed calm, her lips pressed tight. Max's ears flicked again, and his tail gave one tiny twitch. Something was coming. Something big. Pete inside was sweating now. He wiped his forehead with his sleeve, his eyes darting from Sarah to the bikers. He wanted to help, but his feet wouldn't move. He'd seen these guys before, riding through town, making noise. They never stayed long, but they always left a mess, trash on the ground, broken bottles, scared people. Pete didn't like them, but he was too afraid to say it. He just watched, his heart thumping fast. He didn't know what Sarah would do. He didn't know what Max could do. He just knew this wasn't good. The bikers kept going, their voices getting louder. What's wrong with you? Joey shouted, kicking more dirt. Say something. Mike laughed and added, maybe her dog's blind too. They thought it was hilarious. Rusty crossed his arms, grinning like a bully who'd won a fight. Come on, lady, he said. Don't just stand there. Do something. He leaned closer, his shadow falling over Sarah. The others egged him on. Yeah, do something. Slim yelled. Big Tom cracked his knuckles again, the sound popping in the air. Sarah didn't budge. She stood there, her soda still fizzing, her cane still in her hand. She tilted her head a little more, like she was sizing them up with her ears. Max didn't move either, but his eyes stayed on Rusty. They were dark, deep, and steady. The bikers didn't see it, but there was a fire in those eyes, a spark waiting to burst. The air felt thick now, heavy with heat and trouble. The wind stopped blowing, like it was holding its breath. Everyone at the gas station, Pete, the bikers, even the birds in the trees, was waiting. Waiting for what? They didn't know yet. But you do, don't you? You can feel it building. Let's zoom in closer. Rusty's face was red from the sun, and his beard was sweaty. His jacket creaked as he moved, and his boots left marks in the dirt. He was close to Sarah now, close enough to smell her soda. He thought he was so smart, so tough. He thought she was nothing, just a blind lady with a dumb dog. The other bikers spread out a bit, still laughing, still kicking dust. Joey's short legs shuffled as he paced. Mike's pointy nose twitched like a rat's. Big Tom loomed behind, his shadow huge. Slim flipped his coin flip, flip, catch grinning like a kid playing a game. Sarah's dress fluttered a tiny bit in the breeze that wasn't there anymore. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, but her mouth was set in a straight line. She wasn't mad, not scared, just calm. Too calm, maybe. Max's fur rippled as a fly buzzed past, but he didn't chase it. His ears were up, his body still, his breathing slow. He was like a rock, but a rock with a heartbeat. The bikers didn't get it. They didn't see the danger. They thought they were the danger. Ha! They were so wrong it's almost funny. The tension kept growing. It was like a balloon filling up with air, bigger, tighter, ready to pop. Rusty leaned in even closer, his voice dropping low and mean. "You gonna cry, lady?" he said. "You gonna run home?" He laughed, and the others joined in. Joey barked like a dog, mocking Max. Mike clapped his hands, loud and sharp. Big Tom stomped his foot, shaking the ground. Slim's coin flipped high and landed in the dirt. He didn't even pick it up, he was laughing so hard. They were having a great time, picking on Sarah, thinking they were the bosses of this little gas station. But Sarah didn't cry. She didn't run. She just stood there, listening, waiting. Max didn't bark or bite, not yet. He just watched, his eyes burning into Rusty. Pete inside bit his lip, his hands white from gripping the counter. The bikers thought they'd won. They thought Sarah was scared, Max was nothing, and they could do whatever they wanted. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know who they were messing with. Can you feel it? The air's crackling now, like lightning's about to strike. What's Max thinking? Is he mad? Is he planning? What's Sarah waiting for? You're so close to finding out. Let's stretch this out a little more, because this moment's big. The sun was high, beating down on everyone. Sweat dripped off Rusty's nose, plopping into the dirt. His buddies were loud, their voices bouncing off the gas station walls. Sarah's soda was getting warm in her hand, but she didn't drink it. She didn't move at all. Max's fur was dusty now, but he didn't shake it off. He was too focused, too ready. The bikers kept yelling, kept laughing, kept pushing. They didn't stop to think. They didn't look at Max's eyes or Sarah's calm face. They missed all the clues. Pete inside was a mess. His shirt was wet with sweat, and his eyes were wide. He muttered to himself, oh no, over and over. He wanted to call someone, the sheriff, maybe, but his phone was too far. He just watched, helpless, as the bikers got louder. Rusty raised a hand, like he might push Sarah. He didn't touch her, not yet, but he waved it close, testing her. Come on, he shouted. Say something, blind lady. The others cheered him on, their voices a big, messy roar. Sarah heard it all. She heard the hate in Rusty's voice, the glee in Joey's laugh, the slap of Mike's hands. She heard Big Tom's heavy steps, Slim's coin hitting the ground. She heard Pete's whispers inside, the hum of the cooler, the buzz of a fly. She knew exactly where each biker stood, how close they were, how dumb they were acting. And Max? He knew, too. His ears caught every sound, his eyes caught every move. He was still, but inside, he was ready to do something amazing. The tension was huge now, like a giant wave about to crash. The bikers thought they were winning. They thought Sarah was weak, Max was just a pet, and they could keep being mean forever. They had no clue. No clue at all. Something was coming, something fast, something strong, something they'd never expect. Can you feel it? It's right there, so close. What's Max thinking? Is he gonna bark? Jump? Wait a little longer? What's Sarah planning? Stick with me, you're gonna love this. The trouble didn't stop at the gas station. Nope, it kept going, day after day. Those loud, mean bikers, the ones in leather jackets with big boots, decided Sarah was their new favorite person to pick on. For the next few days, they showed up everywhere she went. It was like a game to them, a mean, noisy game. They wanted to scare her, to make her feel small. But Sarah? She didn't scare easy. And Max? He was watching every move they made. Things were heating up in this dusty little town, and little hints were starting to pop up, hints about something big. Let's see what happened. The first place they went was the park. It's a small spot in town with green grass, a few trees, and a bench where people sit. Sarah liked going there. She'd sit on the bench, sip a drink, and let Max rest by her feet. It was peaceful until the bikers rolled in. One morning, Sarah was there, her cane leaning against the bench. Max was lying down, his big head on his paws. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and everything was nice. Then vroom, vroom, vroom. The bikers' motorcycles roared up the road. All five of them, Rusty, Joey, Mike, Big Tom, and Slim, pulled into the park, their engines so loud the birds flew away. Rusty grinned when he saw Sarah. "There she is," he yelled, pointing at her. The others laughed, revving their engines even louder. Vroom. Vroom. The noise was huge, shaking the ground. "Look at her jump." Joey cackled, clapping his hands like it was the funniest thing ever. He thought Sarah would leap up, scared out of her mind. But guess what? She didn't. Sarah didn't jump at all. She just sat there, calm as can be. She tilted her head a little, listening to the engines, and put her hand on Max's head. She patted him gently, pat, 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 and whispered something. Nobody could hear what she said over the noise, but Max's ears perked up. He didn't bark or move. He just stayed still, his sharp eyes locked on the bikers. The bikers kept at it, circling the park on their bikes. Dust flew everywhere, and the grass got all torn up. "Hey, blind lady!" Mike shouted. "You scared yet?" Slim flipped his coin and laughed. Big Tom revved his engine so loud it sounded like thunder. They wanted her to run, to yell, to do something funny. But Sarah didn't. She just sat there, patting Max, whispering. Max's eyes followed Rusty wherever he went, like he was studying him. His tail didn't wag. His body didn't shake. He was cool as ice, watching and waiting. The bikers didn't notice how steady he was. They were too busy being loud. They thought they were winning. They had no idea. The next day, it happened again, this time at the diner. The diner's a little place with red seats and big windows. Sarah liked going there for a snack, maybe a burger or some fries. She'd sit at a table near the door, and Max would lie under it, out of the way. Lucy, the girl who worked there, always smiled and said, "Hi, Sarah." "Hi, Max." It was a happy spot for them. But then the bikers showed up. It was lunchtime, and Sarah was eating a sandwich. Max was under the table, his nose resting on his paws. The door jingled as Lucy brought out a glass of water. Everything was fine until the rumble started. Vroom. Vroom. The bikers roared into the parking lot outside. Their engines growled, and their tires kicked up dust. Rusty hopped off his bike first, stomping toward the diner with a big grin. The others followed, laughing and shoving each other. They stood right outside the window, looking in at Sarah. "There's our girl!" Rusty shouted, banging his fist on the glass. Bang! Bang! Lucy jumped, spilling some water. "Look at her jump!" Joey yelled, pointing at Sarah. He thought she'd drop her sandwich and freak out. But nope, Sarah didn't jump. She took a slow bite of her sandwich, chewing like nothing was wrong. She patted Max's head under the table, pat, pat, and whispered something quiet. Max didn't move from under the table. His eyes peeked out, sharp and bright, watching the bikers through the window. Rusty banged the glass again, harder this time. "Hey, lady," he called. "Your dog gonna hide all day?" The others laughed big, loud laughs that made Lucy step back. Mike kicked the wall outside, and Slim revved his engine loud enough to rattle the plates. They wanted Sarah to get mad or scared. They wanted a show. But Sarah just kept eating, calm and steady. Max stayed still, his eyes on Rusty like a hawk on a mouse. His ears twitched at every sound: the bang, the kick, the engine. He didn't growl, didn't bark, just watched. The bikers didn't see how his muscles got tight, how he was ready for something. They thought he was scared. Wrong again. Then it got worse. The bikers started showing up outside Sarah's little house. It's a small place with a porch and a rocking chair, right at the edge of town. Sarah liked sitting there in the evenings, listening to the crickets. Max would lie by her feet, chewing a stick or just resting. It was their quiet time until the bikers ruined it. One night, Sarah was on her porch, rocking in her chair. Max was next to her, his head on the floor. The stars were out, and the air was cool. Then vroom, vroom. The bikers rolled up the dirt road, their lights flashing, their engines screaming. They stopped right in front of her house, revving their bikes loud. Vroom. Vroom. Dust flew up, and the rocking chair shook. "Hey, blind lady!" Rusty yelled, leaning on his bike. "We're back." Joey cackled again. "Look at her jump." He thought the noise would make Sarah fall out of her chair. But she didn't. She stopped rocking, sat still, and put her hand on Max's head. "Pat, pat, pat," she patted him slow and soft. She whispered something, too quiet to hear. Max lifted his head, his eyes glowing in the dark. He stared at the bikers, not moving, just watching. His ears stood up, catching every sound: the engines, the laughs, the crunch of boots. The bikers kept it up, circling her house on their bikes. They yelled mean things. "You can't hide from us," Mike shouted. "Your dog's useless," Slim added, flipping his coin into the dirt. Big Tom revved his engine so loud the windows rattled. They thought they were so tough, so cool. They thought Sarah would cry or run inside. But she didn't. She sat there, patting Max, whispering. Max didn't chase them or bark. His eyes followed Rusty, sharp and steady. The bikers didn't notice how his body got ready, how his legs tensed up. They thought they were in charge. Oh, they were so wrong. Then came the big moment, the one that showed something was up. It was a sunny afternoon, a few days after the gas station mess. Sarah was walking down the street, her cane tapping tap, tap, tap. Max was beside her, guiding her along. They were headed to the store for some milk. The town was quiet, just the sound of birds and a kid riding a bike. Then vroom. The bikers roared up again. They stopped right in front of Sarah, blocking her path. Rusty jumped off his bike, a big grin on his face. He had an empty soda can in his hand, all crumpled and shiny. "Hey, lady!" Rusty yelled, holding up the can. "Think fast." He tossed it whoosh, right at Sarah's feet. The can hit the ground with a loud clatter, bouncing once, twice, then rolling to a stop. The bikers laughed hard. "Nice catch!" Joey shouted, slapping his knee. Mike snorted, and Slim flipped his coin. Big Tom just grinned, his arms crossed. They thought Sarah would jump or trip over it. They thought it was hilarious. But Sarah didn't move. She stood still, her cane in one hand, her other hand on Max's strap. She tilted her head, listening to the can roll. Max did something, though. When the can hit the ground clatter, he let out a low growl. Grr. It wasn't loud, not scary, just a rumble deep in his throat. His sharp eyes locked on Rusty, and his head stayed low, like he was ready to jump. His muscles tensed up, big and strong under his scruffy fur. Rusty heard the growl and stepped back one quick step. His grin faded for a second, just a tiny bit. Then he laughed it off. "Stupid dog," he muttered, shaking his head. "What's he gonna do? Bark at me?" The others laughed too, thinking it was no big deal. "Dumb mutt," Mike said. "All growl, no bite," Joey added. But Rusty missed something. He didn't see how Max's growl wasn't just noise. It was a warning, a little peek at something bigger. Max's head stayed low, his eyes never left Rusty. His body was like a spring, coiled up and ready to pop. The bikers didn't notice. They were too busy laughing, too busy feeling tough. They didn't see how Max's growl made the air feel different, thicker, heavier. Sarah heard it, though. She smiled faintly, just a tiny curve of her lips. She patted Max again, pat, pat, and whispered something. What was she saying? Nobody knew, but it made Max settle down. His growl stopped, but his eyes stayed on Rusty. The bikers walked away after that, still laughing. They climbed on their bikes and roared off, leaving dust behind. Sarah stood there, the can by her feet, her smile still there. Max sat beside her, calm again, but ready. People watching, like old Mr. Jenkins on his porch or Timmy on his bike, saw it happen. They didn't think much of it. Those bikers are mean, Mr. Jenkins grumbled. Poor Sarah. Timmy just shrugged and kept riding. Nobody saw the clues. Nobody guessed what was coming. But it was their little signs, tiny hints, building up to something huge. Let's zoom in on that moment with the can. The street was quiet again after the bikers left. The can lay in the dirt, shining in the sun. Sarah bent down slow, her cane tapping, and picked it up. She felt it with her fingers, then tossed it into a trash bin nearby. Plink. She didn't say a word, just kept walking. Max stayed by her side, his step steady. That growl he made, it lingered in the air, like an echo nobody heard but Sarah. She knew what it meant. She knew Max wasn't just growling for fun. He was saying something, warning something. What was it? What did he used to do before he was her guide dog? The bikers didn't think about it. They rode off, laughing and yelling, planning their next mean trick. They thought they were in control. They thought Sarah was weak, Max was just a pet, and they could keep pushing her around. Every day at the park, the diner, her house, they showed up, revving their engines, throwing insults. Look at her jump, they'd say, even though she never did. Sarah just kept going, patting Max, whispering. Max kept watching, his eyes sharp, his body ready. The bikers didn't see the trap they were walking into. They didn't see how every laugh, every can, every loud engine was bringing them closer to a big surprise. Days turned into more days, and the bikers got bolder. They'd ride closer to Sarah, shout louder, throw more stuff sticks, cans, even a gum wrapper once. Each time, Sarah stayed calm. Each time, Max watched. Sometimes he growled her just a little, just enough to make them pause. Rusty always laughed it off. Stupid dog, he'd say, and the others would join in. But Max's growls were like puzzle pieces, small bits of a big picture. His tense muscles, his low head, his sharp eyes, they were clues. Clues to what? To who he really was. Any guesses yet? What did Max do before he came to this town? Was he a racer? A hunter? Nope, it's way cooler than that. Sarah knew it all along. That faint smile, those whispers, they showed she wasn't scared. She wasn't weak. She was waiting, just like Max. Waiting for the right moment. The bikers thought they were the hunters, chasing Sarah like a game. But they were wrong. They were the ones being hunted, step by step, laugh by laugh. They didn't see it coming. They didn't know Max's secret, or Sarah's strength. They thought they ruled the town. But they were riding right into a trap. A trap set by a blind lady and her big, scruffy dog. Can you guess what Max used to be? You're so close to finding out. The town watched it happen, day by day. People saw the bikers, heard the engines, shook their heads. Those guys are trouble, Mr. Jenkins said. Poor Sarah, Lucy sighed. Cool bikes. Timmy grinned. Nobody stepped in. Nobody helped. They thought Sarah couldn't fight back. They thought Max was just a guide dog. But little things kept showing up: Max's growls, Sarah's smiles, the way they never ran. Little revelations, tiny surprises, piling up like bricks. The bikers didn't notice. They kept pushing, kept laughing, kept thinking they'd win forever. They were so wrong. So, here we are, days of trouble, days of noise. The bikers kept coming, Sarah kept waiting, Max kept watching. Something big was building, something wild. The trap was closing, slow but sure. What was Max before? Why was Sarah so calm? You're about to find out, and it's gonna be awesome. Stick around, this is getting good. The week had been rough in that dusty little town. The bikers, Rusty and his loud gang, kept picking on Sarah everywhere she went. They thought it was fun, like a game they could win. But they didn't know something big was coming. Friday night rolled around, and that's when everything flipped upside down. The bikers decided to push it too far, way too far. They didn't just want to scare Sarah anymore. They wanted to show everyone they were the bosses of this town. Oh boy, were they in for a shock. Let's see how it all went down. It was dark outside, the kind of dark where the stars shine bright and the air feels cool. Sarah was walking near the edge of town, close to an old warehouse. The warehouse was a big, empty building with broken windows and rusty walls. Nobody went there much. It was quiet, spooky, and far from the houses. Sarah liked walking there sometimes. It was peaceful, just her and Max, away from the noise. Her cane tapped the ground, tap, 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 as she moved slow and steady. Max was beside her, his big paws padding along, guiding her through the dark. They were alone, or so it seemed. Then came the rumble. Vroom, vroom, vroom. The bikers' motorcycles growled in the distance, getting louder and louder. Sarah heard it first. Her sharp ears caught the sound before anyone else could. She stopped walking, tilting her head to listen. Max stopped too, his ears perking up, his body still. The rumble grew, shaking the ground, until the bikers rolled into view. All five of them, Rusty, Joey, Mike, Big Tom, and Slim, rode up on their shiny bikes. Their headlights cut through the dark, shining on Sarah and Max like spotlights. Dust flew everywhere as they screeched to a stop, surrounding her near the warehouse. Rusty jumped off his bike first. He was the leader, the big guy with the scruffy beard and mean grin. His leather jacket creaked as he stretched his arms, and his boots hit the dirt with a loud thump. The other bikers climbed off too, cracking their knuckles and laughing. Joey's short legs shuffled as he moved. Mike's pointy nose twitched. Big Tom loomed like a giant, and Slim flipped his coin with that sneaky smile. They were loud, their mouths full of mean words and big laughs. Well, 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 Rusty sneered, his voice rough like sandpaper. Look who we found. The others chuckled, spreading out to block Sarah's path. Sarah didn't move. She stood there, her cane in one hand, Max's strap in the other. The night was quiet except for the bikers, their bikes rumbling low, their voices bouncing off the warehouse walls. Rusty took a step closer, his shadow falling over Sarah. He cracked his knuckles, loud crack, crack, and grinned wider. Time to have some real fun, he said, his eyes gleaming in the dark. He raised a hand, big and rough, like he was gonna shove Sarah hard. The other bikers cheered him on. Get her, Rusty. Joey yelled. Show her who's boss. Mike added. They thought this was it, the big moment where they'd win for good. That's when it happened. As lightning, Max moved. 1 second, he was sitting still by Sarah's side. The next boom, he leaped into action. It was so fast you could barely see it. His big body shot forward, paws pounding the dirt, and in one giant jump, he slammed into Rusty. Down they went. Rusty hit the ground flat on his back with a loud thud, and Max landed on top of him. Max's jaws were an inch from Rusty's throat, his teeth shining white in the moonlight. He growled grr, a deep, scary sound, like a beast straight out of a nightmare. His fur bristled, his eyes burned, and his whole body was tense, ready to strike. Rusty froze. His mean grin was gone, wiped clean off his face. His eyes went wide, huge, round, and scared. Sweat popped out on his forehead, dripping down fast. He didn't move, didn't breathe, just lay there under Max's paws. The other bikers froze too. Their mouths dropped open. Joey's laugh stopped, Mike's nose stopped twitching, Big Tom's arms fell, and Slim's coin hit the dirt with a tiny clink. They stared, shocked, like they couldn't believe their eyes. The air went still, heavy, like the whole world was holding its breath. All you could hear was Max's growler and the low rumble of the bikes. Sarah straightened up, calm as ever. She let go of Max's strap and stood tall, her cane tapping once tap on the ground. She turned her head toward the bikers, her dark sunglasses hiding her eyes. Max, hold, she said, her voice steady and clear. Max didn't budge. His jaws stayed close to Rusty's throat, his growl rumbling low. He held Rusty down like it was nothing, his big paws pressing hard into the dirt. Rusty whimpered a tiny, scared sound and tried to wiggle free, but Max was too strong. He wasn't going anywhere. Then Sarah spoke again, and this was the big moment, the one that changed everything. She turned to the bikers, her voice ice cold but loud enough for them all to hear. You should know something, she said. Max isn't just my guide dog. He's a retired Navy SEAL K-9. Trained to take down enemies way tougher than you. She let the words hang in the air, sharp and heavy. The bikers blinked, their faces blank, like they didn't get it at first. Then it hit them. Rusty's eyes got even wider, if that was possible. What? He stammered, his voice shaky and loud. Sweat poured down his face now, soaking his beard. He looked up at Max, then at Sarah, then back at Max, like he was seeing them for the first time. Sarah smiled just a little, a tiny curve of her lips. "Yeah," she said, calm and cool. "You picked the wrong girl to mess with." Her words were like a punch, short and strong. The bikers stood there, mouth still open, staring at her and Max. Max growled again, his jaws so close to Rusty's neck that Rusty squeaked. The truth sank in slow, then fast. Max wasn't just a dog. He was a Navy SEAL canine, a super tough, super trained dog who'd fought bad guys way scarier than these bikers. He wasn't just Sarah's helper. He was a hero, a warrior, and he was done with their nonsense. Let's zoom in on that moment, because it's huge. Rusty was flat on his back, pinned under Max's big paws. His leather jacket was dusty, his boots stuck out funny, and his hands shook as he tried to push Max off. But Max didn't move. His growl filled the night like a monster guarding its treasure. His teeth gleamed, sharp and ready, an inch from Rusty's throat. Rusty's face was white now, all the toughness gone. He looked like a scared kid, not a big, mean biker. "Gee, get him off," he yelled, his voice cracking. But Max didn't listen to him. He listened to Sarah, and Sarah said, "Hold." The other bikers didn't know what to do. Joey took a step back, his short legs wobbling. Mike's hands went up, like he was surrendering. Big Tom's giant body shrank a little, his shoulders slumping. Slim just stared, his coin forgotten in the dirt. They'd been so loud, so sure of themselves, but now they were quiet. Scared. Max's growl and Sarah's words flipped everything around. They thought they were the tough ones, the ones in charge. But they were wrong, super wrong. Sarah and Max were the real bosses here, and the bikers were just finding that out. Sarah stood tall, her blue dress fluttering in the night breeze. Her sunglasses caught the headlights, flashing like little mirrors. She couldn't see the bikers' faces, but she didn't need to. She heard their gasps, their stumbles, Rusty's scared squeaks. She knew they were shocked. She'd been waiting for this, waiting for them to push too far. All those days, the park, the diner, her house, the kin they'd been building to this. She'd stayed calm, whispered to Max, let them think they'd won. But now it was time to show them the truth. Max was the star of this moment. His big, scruffy body was all muscle, all power. His fur stood up, making him look even bigger. His growler was low and steady, a sound that made your heart thump. He'd moved so fast, like a bolt of lightning, and now he held Rusty down like it was easy. But it wasn't just strength. Max was smart, super smart. He'd been trained by the Navy SEALs, the toughest people around. He'd learned to jump, to fight, to stop bad guys in their tracks. He wasn't just a guide dog. He was a soldier, a protector, and he'd had enough of these bikers. Rusty couldn't believe it. "And Navy SEAL," he stammered again, his voice tiny. His hands shook harder, and his breath came out fast, huff, huff, huff. He looked up at Max's jaws, so close, and gulped loud. The other bikers started whispering. "Did she say Navy SEAL?" Joey muttered. "No way." Mike hissed. Big Tom shook his head slow, like he was waking up from a dream. Slim kicked the dirt, mumbling, "We're screwed." They'd been so sure Sarah was weak, Max was nothing. Now they saw the truth, and it hit them like a brick. Sarah's smile grew a little bigger. She tapped her cane once tap and stepped closer to Rusty. Max stayed put, holding him down. "You've been mean to me all week," she said, her voice still cold and steady. "Yelling, throwing stuff, trying to scare me. But I'm not scared. And Max? He's not scared either. He's been waiting for you to try something dumb like this." She pointed at Rusty with her cane. "And you did. So here we are." Rusty blinked fast, sweat dripping into his eyes. He didn't know what to say. He just lay there, pinned, looking up at Max's growling face. The warehouse loomed behind them, dark and quiet. The bike's engines hummed low, their headlights still on. The night air was cool, but nobody felt it. They were too shocked. The bikers had followed Sarah here, thinking they'd have real fun. They thought they'd push her around, laugh, and ride off like kings. But now Rusty was on the ground, Max was a Navy SEAL dog, and Sarah was in charge. How's that for a twist? Bet you didn't see it coming. It was fast, it was wild, and it was awesome. Let's stretch this out some more, because it's too good to rush. Rusty's hands clawed at the dirt, trying to find something to grab. His boots kicked a little, but Max's weight kept him stuck. Please, he begged, his voice high and whiny. Call him off. Sarah didn't move. She stood there, her head tilted, listening to his panic. You didn't stop when I asked you to, she said. All week, you kept coming. Now you want me to stop. She shook her head slow. Not yet. Max growled louder, grr, and Rusty squeaked again, his whole body shaking. Joey took another step back, almost tripping over his own bike. We didn't mean it, he yelled, his hands up. It was just a joke. Mike nodded fast. Yeah, just fun. We're sorry. Big Tom mumbled something nobody heard, his big hands twisting together. Slim looked at his coin in the dirt, then at Max, then at Sarah. We'll leave, he said quick. Right now. Promise. They were all scared now, their tough guy act falling apart. They'd pushed too far, and Max had pushed back hard. Sarah didn't yell or cheer. She just stood there, calm and strong. Max is trained, she said. He knows what to do with guys like you. He's taken down bigger, meaner people than you'll ever be. She patted Max's back, pat, and he stayed steady, his growl rumbling on. Rusty's eyes darted around, looking for help, but his buddies weren't moving. They were too stunned, too afraid. Max wasn't just a dog anymore. He was a weapon, a hero, and he'd caught them all by surprise. The reveal sank deeper. A Navy SEAL K-9. That meant Max had been in real fights, real danger. He'd worked with soldiers, brave people who saved the world. He'd learned to jump fast, bite hard, hold bad guys down. He wasn't just Sarah's guide dog, he was her guard, her fighter. All those days, watching the bikers, growling low, staying cool, he'd been ready. Ready for this. And Sarah? She'd known it all along. She'd waited, let them laugh, let them push, until they went too far. Now they saw her power and Max's and they couldn't handle it. Rusty's breath was ragged now, huff like he'd run a race. Okay, he gasped. We're done. I swear. His tough voice was gone, replaced by a scared whine. Max's growl softened a little, but he didn't move. Sarah tapped her cane again, tap. Good, she said. You should have stopped sooner. She didn't laugh or gloat. She just stood there, Max by her side, letting the bikers feel their mistake. The night was theirs now, Sarah and Max, the blind lady and her hero dog, unbeatable. So there it was, the big climax, the huge reveal. The bikers thought they'd have fun, but Max leaped in, fast and fierce, and showed them who's boss. Sarah told the truth, Max, a Navy SEAL K-9, and flipped the whole story around. Rusty was down, the others were scared, and the town's edge was buzzing with action. How's that for a twist? It's wild, it's cool, and it's just the start of the end for these bikers. Stick around, you'll love what happens next. The night was buzzing with excitement near that old warehouse. Max had Rusty pinned to the ground, his big paws pressing hard, his jaws an inch from Rusty's throat. His growl was low and steady, keeping Rusty right where he was. Rusty's face was white, sweat dripping down like rain, his tough guy act all gone. The other bikers, Joey, Mike, Big Tom, and Slim, stood frozen, their mouths open, their bikes rumbling low behind them. They didn't dare move. Max's glare was like glue, sticking them to the spot. His sharp eyes flashed in the dark, saying, "Don't even try it." Sarah stood tall, calm as ever, her cane in one hand, her voice ice cold after dropping the big news: Max was a retired Navy SEAL K-9. The bikers were in shock, and now it was time to finish this. Sarah didn't waste a second. She reached into her pocket with her free hand and pulled out her phone. It was a little flip phone, old but trusty. She flipped it open, click, and pressed some buttons fast. Beep, beep, beep. She knew exactly what to do, even though she couldn't see the screen. She held the phone to her ear, waiting. Max kept Rusty pinned, not moving an inch. His growler kept going, a deep rumble that made the air feel heavy. Rusty whimpered, "Please, let me up," but Sarah didn't answer him. She just stood there, waiting for the call to go through. The bikers didn't try to run. They couldn't. Max's glare swept over them. Joey's short legs shook, Mike's hands stayed up, Big Tom's big body shrank, and Slim just stared at the dirt. They'd been loud and mean all week, but now they were quiet, scared, stuck. Their bikes' headlights lit up the scene, shining on Rusty flat on his back, Max on top, and Sarah standing strong. The warehouse loomed in the dark, its broken windows like eyes watching it all. The night was cool, the stars were bright, and trouble was about to get cleaned up. The phone rang once, twice, then someone picked up. "Sheriff's office," a gruff voice said. Sarah spoke clear and calm. "Hi, Sheriff. It's Sarah Miller. I'm out by the old warehouse. Those bikers who've been bothering me, they're here. They tried to hurt me, but Max stopped them. Can you come get them?" The sheriff didn't even pause. "On my way," he said, and the line went click. Sarah flipped her phone shut and slipped it back in her pocket. She tapped her cane once tap and said, "Max, hold." Max didn't budge. His growl stayed steadier and Rusty stayed down. The bikers heard her call. Their eyes got wider, if that was possible. "Sheriff." Joey squeaked, his voice high. She called the sheriff. Mike whispered, his pointy nose twitching fast. Big Tom groaned, "Oh no," and rubbed his face. Slim kicked the dirt hard, muttering, "We're done for." Rusty squirmed under Max, his hands clawing at the ground. "No, no, no," he yelled. "Don't call the sheriff. We're sorry." But it was too late. Sarah didn't even look at him. She couldn't see him anyway. She just stood there, calm and sure, waiting. It didn't take long. Soon, a new sound cut through the night. Wee-oh-oh, wee-oh-oh. Sirens. A big sheriff's truck rolled up the dirt road, lights flashing red and blue. The truck stopped with a screech, and out jumped Sheriff Dan. He was a tall guy with a white hat and a badge that shone in the headlights. He had a bushy mustache and a deep voice, the kind that made you listen. His boots crunched on the gravel as he walked over, his hands on his hips. He took one look at the scene: Rusty on the ground, Max growling, Sarah standing cool, the other bikers frozen, and shook his head slow. "You idiots," Sheriff Dan said, his voice loud and grumbly. "You really thought you could harass Sarah and get away with it?" He pointed at Rusty, then at the others. "I've been hearing about you clowns for months, riding around, making noise, scaring folks. The town's been waiting for an excuse to lock you up. And now you've given me one." He laughed a big, deep laugh and pulled out a pair of shiny handcuffs from his belt. Click, click, they gleamed in the light. Rusty's eyes went huge. Wait," he stammered, still pinned under Max. "We didn't mean it. It was just fun." Sheriff Dan didn't listen. He knelt down next to Rusty and nodded at Sarah. "Sarah, tell your dog to let him go. I've got him now." Sarah smiled a little. "Max, off," she said, her voice steady. Max stopped growling, went quiet, and stepped off Rusty slow. His big paws left marks in the dirt as he moved back to Sarah's side. He sat down, calm again, but his eyes stayed on Rusty, sharp and ready. Rusty scrambled up, coughing and brushing dust off his jacket. "See? We're good now," he said fast. "No need for cuffs." But Sheriff Dan grabbed his arm, yank, and slapped the handcuffs on. Click, click. "Too late for that," the sheriff said. "You're coming with me." Rusty's shoulders slumped, his head hanging low. The tough biker was gone, just a sweaty, scared guy now. The sheriff pushed him toward the truck, and Rusty stumbled, muttering excuses. It was a joke. "We didn't know about the dog." Nobody cared what he said. The other bikers didn't fight either. Sheriff Dan called out, "Line up, boys," and they shuffled over, hands behind their backs. Joey whined, "I didn't do anything." Mike mumbled, "It was Rusty's idea." Big Tom just sighed, and Slim said, "I told them to stop." Sheriff Dan didn't buy it. He pulled out more handcuffs, click, 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 and put them on one by one. Joey's short arms twisted as the cuffs went on. Mike's skinny wrists rattled in them. Big Tom's giant hands barely fit, and Slim's sneaky fingers stopped moving. "You're all in this together," the sheriff said. "Let's go." The bikers got hauled off, one after another, into the back of the sheriff's truck. The truck had a big cage in the back, like a box for bad guys. Sheriff Dan opened the door creak, and pushed Rusty in first. "Get in there," he growled. Rusty climbed up, still muttering, "This ain't fair." Joey went next, tripping on the step. Mike followed, his head down. Big Tom had to duck to fit, and Slim slid in last. "Quiet now." The door slammed shut bang, and the sheriff locked it tight. The bikers sat squished together, their faces red, their tough act gone. Then something cool happened. People started showing up. Neighbors who lived nearby heard the sirens and came out to see what was going on. They peeked from behind trees, stepped out of houses, and gathered near the warehouse. Old Mr. Jenkins hobbled over with his cane, grumbling, "About time." Lucy from the diner ran up, her apron still on. Timmy zoomed in on his red bike, yelling, "Whoa." More folks came, men, women, kids, all whispering and pointing. When they saw the bikers in cuffs, they started clapping. Clap, clap, clap. It was soft at first, then loud, like a big cheer. Sarah stood there, Max by her side, as the clapping grew. She couldn't see the crowd, but she heard it clap, 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 and her faint smile got bigger. Neighbors who'd ignored her before, who'd thought, "Poor Sarah, she's helpless," now looked at her different. They saw Max, the big, scruffy dog who'd taken down Rusty. They saw Sarah, calm and strong, calling the sheriff like it was no big deal. "She's not helpless," a lady said. "That dog's amazing," a man added. The clapping got louder, clap, 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 and voices cheered, "Way to go, Sarah. Good job, Max." One kid, little Timmy with the red bike, ran right up to Max. His eyes were huge, his grin wide. "You're awesome," he shouted, bouncing on his toes. Max wagged his tail a little, swish, swish, and let Timmy pat his head. "He's a hero," Timmy yelled, and the crowd cheered more. Sarah nodded, scratching Max behind the ears. "Scratch, scratch." "Good boy," she said, soft, her voice warm. Max sat tall, his chest puffed out, like he knew he'd done something great. The town was buzzing now, alive with noise and light. Sheriff Dan climbed into his truck, ready to drive off. He tipped his hat to Sarah. "Nice work, you two," he said. "These guys won't bother you again." He started the engine, vroom, and the truck rolled away, lights flashing, wee-oh-oh, wee-oh-oh. The bikers' faces pressed against the cage bars, looking out as the crowd waved goodbye. Rusty was still muttering, "It's not fair," but nobody listened. Joey hung his head, Mike sniffled, Big Tom stared at the floor, and Slim just sighed. They were caught, done, finished. The truck disappeared down the road, and the clapping slowed down. People started talking fast, all at once. "Did you see that dog jump?" Mr. Jenkins said. "He's a Navy SEAL dog." Lucy gasped. "Sarah's tougher than she looks," Timmy's mom added. Kids ran around, pretending to be Max, growling and leaping, hop. Grown UPS shook their heads, amazed. They'd all thought Sarah was weak, Max was just a pet. Now they knew the truth, Sarah wasn't helpless, and Max was a hero. The town learned it that day, loud and clear. Sarah didn't say much. She tapped her cane, tap, tap, and started walking back toward home, Max guiding her like always. The crowd parted to let her through, still whispering, "Wow, and she's awesome." Timmy rode his bike next to her for a bit, chattering, "Max is the best. Can I pet him again?" Sarah smiled. "Sure," she said, and Max wagged his tail, swish, swish, as Timmy patted him more. The night settled down, the stars shining bright, the warehouse quiet again. Let's think about those bikers for a minute. How do you think they felt when they realized who they'd been picking on? Rusty was probably mad at first, mad he got caught, mad he looked dumb. But under that, he was scared. Scared of Max's jaws, scared of jail, scared of Sarah's calm voice saying, "Navy SEAL K9." Joey might have felt silly, his big laughs didn't help him now. Mike was probably whining inside, wishing he'd stayed quiet. Big Tom, so huge and tough, felt small for once. And Slim. He was kicking himself for not running sooner. They all thought they were big shots, but they'd messed with the wrong team, Sarah and Max, and now they were locked up, no bikes, no freedom. The town changed after that night. People didn't just nod at Sarah anymore. They stopped to say hi, to ask how she was, to pet Max. "You're amazing, Sarah," they'd say. "Max is the coolest dog ever." Kids drew pictures of him, big, scruffy Max with a badge, jumping on bad guys. Lucy put a sign in the diner, "Heroes eat free, Sarah and Max welcome." Mr. Jenkins even smiled once, muttering, "Good dog," when Max walked by. The dusty little town wasn't so sleepy anymore. It had a story now, a big one, and Sarah and Max were the stars. Sarah didn't brag. She didn't need to. She kept walking with Max, her cane tapping tap, tap, her life quiet again. But everyone knew, she was strong, Max was a hero, and nobody would mess with them anymore. The bikers were gone, locked up for a long time, and justice was served big time. The clapping, the cheers, "Timmy's, you're awesome." It all showed the town waking up to the truth. Sarah and Max had won, fair and square. So, that's how it ended or started, really. The bikers learned their lesson, the hard way. The town learned Sarah's strength, Max's power. How do you think those bikers felt, sitting in that truck, knowing they'd picked on a Navy SEAL dog and a lady tougher than them all? Pretty dumb, right? They'd never forget it, and neither would the town. Sarah scratched Max's ears one more time, scratch, scratch, and said, "Good boy," as they headed home. The night was peaceful again, justice done, and the dusty little town had a new hero duo to cheer for. Wow, what a story, right? We've been on a wild ride with Sarah and Max, and now it's time to sit back and think about it all. So there you have it, a blind woman and her big, scruffy dog turned the tables on a gang of mean bullies. They flipped everything upside down, and it all came down to one super cool thing: never judge someone by what you see on the outside. That's the big lesson here, and it's a good one. Sarah and Max showed us something amazing, and I'm gonna break it down for you so it sticks in your head like your favorite song. Ready? Let's go. First, let's look back at what happened. Sarah was blind, so people thought she was weak. She couldn't see, so they figured she couldn't do much. They saw her tapping her cane, tap, 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 and walking slow with Max, and they said, "Oh, poor Sarah. She's helpless." The bikers thought that too. They saw her dark sunglasses, her quiet way, and they laughed. Easy target, they thought. She can't fight back. And Max? He was just a dog to them, a big, scruffy mutt who sat by her side. What's he gonna do, they sneered. Bark at us? They judged Sarah and Max by what they saw on the outside, and boy, were they wrong. But here's the thing: Sarah and Max proved that real strength isn't loud or showy. It doesn't yell or brag or wave its arms around. Nope, real strength is quiet. It waits, it watches, and it strikes when the time's right. Think about Sarah. All week, those bikers yelled at her, threw stuff, revved their engines, vroom, vroom. She didn't yell back. She didn't run or cry. She just stayed calm, patting Max, pat, pat, and whispering to him. She waited. She listened. She knew something they didn't. And Max? He didn't bark or chase them. He sat still, his sharp eyes following every move, his growls longer like little warnings. He watched, ready, waiting for the perfect moment. Then, bam! That moment came Friday night by the warehouse. The bikers pushed too far, and Max leaped fast as lightning. He pinned Rusty down, jaws an inch from his throat, growling like a beast. Sarah stood tall and dropped the truth: Max is a retired Navy SEAL K9. Whoa! The bikers' jaws dropped, the town cheered, and everything flipped. That quiet strength, Sarah's calm, Max's power hit hard when it needed to. It wasn't loud until it had to be. It waited, watched, and struck. That's what real strength does, and Sarah and Max showed it perfectly. So, what's that mean for you? Think about it. Next time you see someone quiet, someone you think is weak, stop for a second. Ask yourself, what's their story? What's their secret? Maybe they're like Sarah, calm on the outside, strong inside. Maybe they've got a Max, a hidden hero waiting to shine. You can't tell just by looking. That kid in class who doesn't talk much. Maybe they're super smart or really brave. That person walking slow down the street. Maybe they've got a big story you don't know. You might be surprised what's hiding behind a quiet face or a slow step. Let's imagine it. Picture you're at school. There's a new kid sitting alone at lunch. They don't say much, just eat their sandwich and look around. You might think, oh, they're shy. They're not cool. But what if they're not shy? What if they're just waiting watching, like Sarah? Maybe they're great at something like drawing or soccer but nobody's seen it yet. Maybe they've got a secret talent, a big surprise, like Max being a Navy SEAL dog. You won't know unless you ask, unless you look closer. Judging them by the outside might miss the best part. Or think about your neighborhood. There's an old lady who walks her little dog every day. She's slow, her hair's gray, and she doesn't wave much. You might think, she's just old. Nothing special. But what if she's got a story? Maybe she was a teacher who helped tons of kids. Maybe her little dog once saved her from trouble. You can't see that from far away. You've got to wonder, to talk, to find out. People are like treasure chests. Sometimes the best stuff is locked inside, waiting for someone to open it up. Sarah and Max teach us that. They were a team nobody expected to win. The bikers saw a blind lady and a dog easy to pick on, right? Wrong. Sarah's ears were her superpower. She heard everything, knew everything. Max's training was his secret. He'd fought big battles before these silly bikers. Together, they waited, watched, and struck. The town learned it too. They clapped, clap, 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 and cheered, Sarah's tough. Max is a hero. They stopped judging by the outside and saw the real strength inside. That's a lesson for all of us. Let's stretch this out some more, because it's too good to rush. Think about your own life. Have you ever felt like Sarah? Maybe someone thought you couldn't do something because you're small, or quiet, or different. Maybe they laughed, like the bikers did. But you've got strength inside. Everyone does. It might be waiting, hiding, ready to jump out when you need it. Like when you try something hard like riding a bike and fall a bunch. You don't give up. You wait, you practice, and then zoom, you ride fast. That's quiet strength, striking when the time's right. Or maybe you know a Max, a friend or a pet who's more than they seem. Your little dog who barks at strangers. Maybe he's a protector, like Max. Your buddy who's shy but helps you with homework. Maybe they're a hero in their own way. You don't see it at first. It's not loud or big, but it's there. Sarah and Max remind us to look for that, in ourselves and in others. Don't judge fast. Wait. Watch. Be surprised. Here's a fun idea, try it tomorrow. When you're at school or playing outside, look around. Pick someone quiet, someone you don't know much about. Ask yourself, what's their story? What's their secret? Maybe say hi, ask a question, see what you find. You might meet a Sarah calm and strong. You might find a Max ready to leap. It's like a game, a treasure hunt for cool people and cool surprises. You never know what you'll get. Let's talk about those bikers one more time. Rusty and his gang: Joey, Mike, Big Tom, Slim. They judged wrong, big time. They thought they were tough, riding their loud bikes, vroom, vroom, yelling mean stuff. They saw Sarah and Max and thought, easy. But they didn't look deeper. They didn't wonder. And what happened? Max pinned Rusty, bam, and Sarah called the sheriff. They got hauled off in cuffs, click, click, muttering excuses. They felt dumb, scared, small. All because they judged by the outside. Don't be like them. Look closer, think harder, and you won't miss the good stuff. This story's crazy, right? A blind woman and her dog beating bullies. It's wild. But it's more than wild. It's inspiring. It makes you feel big inside, like you can do anything. Sarah didn't need eyes to win. She had ears, heart, and Max. Max didn't need to bark loud. He had training, power, and Sarah. Together, they showed real strength isn't about shouting or showing off. It's about waiting for your moment, watching for your chance, and striking when it counts. You can do that too, in your own way, every day. Thanks for sticking with me through this crazy tale. It's been a blast, hasn't it? We started with a dusty town, met Sarah and Max, watched the bikers get mean, and then pow, saw them win big. The gas station, the park, the diner, the warehouse, it all built up to that awesome night. Max leaping, Sarah revealing, the sheriff cuffing, the town cheering, clap, clap, clap. It's a story you won't forget, full of twists and lessons. If you loved it, drop a like below, push that button, and tell me your favorite part. Was it Max's jump? Sarah's cool voice? The biker's scared faces? I wanna know. Let's keep the good stories coming, okay? This one's done, but there's more out there, more heroes, more surprises, more fun. Next time you're here, we'll find another wild tale to dive into. Maybe a kid with a secret pet, or a quiet teacher who's really a spy, who knows. Stick with me, and we'll keep the excitement going. Sarah and Max showed us how awesome quiet strength can be, and I bet we'll find more like them. See you next time, bye for now.